Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's Halls to Homes event. My name's Amanda, Sustainability Programme Officer for the University, and I'm joined by my panel of, would you like to introduce yourself, guys?
Oh, I'll go next.
Go.
Yeah, my name's Hattie Matthews and I'm one of this year's sustainability interns. So part of my work is working with Amanda on the Student Citizenship Programme.
I'm Izzy and I'm the Union Affairs Officer at LUU for the coming year.
And I'm Lottie and I'm the Community Officer at LUU for the coming year.
Thank you, guys. So the purpose of today's event session is to kind of support students moving from kind of the halls of residence recently out into the local community. Some of you may kind of be in that process. Some may be kind of already moved into the local community, but today is just to kind of explore some of the kind of pitfalls potentially that students can come in up to when they're moving out into the local community, what you need to know, what's helpful to know, and where to go really if you're having any kind of issues or problems that come up through the year. So the session today, we're going to have a look at kind of answering some questions and and share our experiences of kind of living locally and kind of how to make the most of your time. And then we're going to go on to some questions that have been raised to the panel through Instagram. So I'd like to kind of go to the panel first, if I may, and ask you a question. So the first question, and we'll probably follow the same order. So Hattie, Izzy, then Lottie. What had you wish you'd been told before moving into Hyde Park? Have you got one tip for people kind of watching this video?
I think what I wish I'd been told, this is kind of more of a logistical thing, but taking pictures of the property when you move in. I know we had a few difficulties at the end of the year being able to claim that there was some kind of mark or something on the house that wasn't our doing, and actually it's really helpful kind of just as a thing you do the moment you move in to take some pictures of the house, so that you're not blamed for anything that wasn't you. And I know that's happened to kind of a few people, so that's just quite a good thing to do when you first move in.
Great.
I'm going to go for the same one that I did for Instagram, if that's all right. Because I think mine would be just remembering that Hyde Park isn't just students, which I think can be quite easy, especially when you've been in halls and you've just been around students, is kind of moving in somewhere where there's a real mix of people, and not everyone's a student and kind of living to the student timetable and student times for the day. Keeping that in mind, because I know that that's something that I forgot and that is commonly forgotten.
Great tip.
Yeah, kind of similarly, getting to know your neighbours and getting kind of to know the local area and nature spots. This was kind of like a big eye-opener for me during lockdown, that there's so many nice parks and places you can walk around, which I kind of wish I'd known earlier. And especially like just sitting outside with our neighbours and chatting, we kind of wish we'd done it earlier in the year rather than just because we were all stuck in the house and kind of had to.
Yeah, have you got a favourite park, Lottie? Obviously everyone knows about Woodhouse Moor or Hyde as students. So is there any other kind of great parks that you visited?
I really like Meanwood Park because there's always loads of dogs.
I was going to say Meanwood.
Yeah, and the Valley Trails are really nice as well.
Yeah, I mean there's lots of great kind of trails and parks to kind of look at. So what was the biggest difference you found moving from kind of halls into kind of a home for the first time? Kind of what was the biggest kind of difference you noticed?
I think for me, similar to Izzy's point, actually, that we moved in next door to a young family, and the whole dynamic of that really kind of, with this idea of Hyde Park as a student bubble, we were really taken aback, and we had just presumed that we'd be living next door to students. So yeah, I think for me that was the biggest kind of like, oh, so if there is a problem, and we had a number of problems with waste and bins not being collected, that was something that, rather than just telling the halls like, oh, this isn't happening, it was something that we had to then talk to the council about and negotiate with our neighbours. So I think it's those things that you kind of need to negotiate throughout your time living in a house, where you could just go to one person, say your halls rep or whatever, and say this is a problem. Now you might have to go to a few different people to get something sorted. And I think that was a bit of a difference that we found.
I think mine would be the sort of responsibilities for negotiating with your housemates as well, because in halls obviously things are a lot more straightforward in terms of bills, for example, whereas when you're in a house it's kind of just making sure that you get those things sorted, and that you're having to have those negotiations about kind of sorting out the rubbish, sorting out the bills, sorting out the Wi-Fi, and everyone having a responsibility for that. And that's quite a good thing to sort out early on, but it's just something that we weren't used to because we'd all lived in the same halls. We were used to kind of what our dynamic was living together, but forgetting all of those kind of more adult responsibilities that you have when it's not all sorted out by one person, by kind of the halls.
Did you find, as a kind of point to that, there was a kind of potential for conflict or more conflict living in a kind of shared house? And how did you resolve that?
It's a communication thing, really, I think. And it's also having those conversations where you're like, okay, we need to have this conversation as a housemate, you owe me this much money, or as a housemate, you have a responsibility to sort this thing out with the estate agent or with the Wi-Fi company. And it's just starting to have those relationships and saying, like, this isn't us as friends having this conversation. Sometimes you have to talk about it as housemates and kind of say, right, this, for example, with our deposit coming back, sometimes you have to say that's your responsibility. And it's just saying beforehand, we're not having this conversation as friends, it's as housemates, we need to sort this out. And sometimes you do just have to make that not distinction, but you know what I mean, kind of setting the balance between being housemates and being friends. And that sometimes there are things that you have to kind of address in a serious voice that's not just like a friend. I guess
it's not taking it personally as well.
Definitely.
I was awful for the bins, and it was always my job on a certain day, and not taking it personally that I hadn't done it. A big thing.
And that your housemates have a right to like
exactly
for things. So yeah, definitely kind of not getting defensive and not taking it personally is something that you definitely, it's a positive thing that you learn through the experience of feeling it in a way.
How about you, Lottie?
Yeah, I guess in a kind of similar way. A big difference for us was that you're really responsible for the security of your house as well. So like in our halls, for example, our doors locked automatically behind us. So we weren't in the habit of sort of checking that all the doors were locked and the windows were locked. And I think that's quite similar in the way that you have to get used to having those conversations like, oh, you left the door open kind of thing. It's okay, but remember that now we live on a street where someone could see our door was like not locked or whatever, or just saw you popping in and out, especially if you're in a big house and there's a lot of you going in and out. I was in a house of 8, and we always had friends over and things like that. So it's kind of maybe allocating that responsibility to someone to be like, you're the last one in, make sure the door's locked behind you, or just check all the windows are closed before you go to bed, that kind of thing.
It's just putting those kind of checks and balances in, and remember to put those checks and balances in, that these things are now your responsibility, and everybody has to kind of remember in a timely way to kind of make sure these things are happening. So what did you love about living in Hyde Park?
I particularly loved the parts of Hyde Park where you really felt there was a kind of connect between the student population and permanent residents. So that's why to me, like a lot of the kind of small cafes and independent kind of pubs and restaurants felt really nice because it was such a hub for students that wanted to kind of support the local community, but actually there didn't feel like such a division there. And I think I love having those moments where you'd kind of be reminded of like, oh, this is a really diverse area, and kind of takes you out of that student bubble that you're quite used to living in by the end of first year.
I think mine's the same, really. Like the independent businesses as well, and that kind of feeling that you're part of a community and you're supporting people who live where you live, kind of thing, by supporting independent businesses. I love that about Hyde Park, that I can't think of many other than Sainsbury's, like kind of chains that are the go-to place, which is quite rare. Like I don't have that same thing where I live at home, where the go-to place to go for kind of like a restaurant or a pub or a shop or a cafe is an independent business. So I really liked living somewhere where that was much more the kind of norm and the culture.
Great.
Yeah, definitely. I think quite similar again. But I liked that how close we all were with me and my friends. You can walk everywhere. It's close to uni, and the same sort of way if we would go to like a local pub or something like that, rather than like maybe a chain bar in the city, and it was close and convenient for everyone. And that was really nice, and feeling like you were all in the same sort of area, and yeah, it was really different from halls.
Great. Any last thoughts on kind of, one last kind of lasting thought about kind of what you'd like to kind of pass on to students about making the most of Hyde Park in this coming year?
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, thinking about what you leave behind, which obviously is a long way off. But that was something that I think we should have thought about a bit sooner, because it became a big rush. That, yeah, at some point you're going to move out and everyone's going to be responsible for all the stuff you leave in your house and for the condition you leave your house in. So that is something that you need to still be kind of mindful of, even though it feels a long way off. That like all this, I mean, we just accumulated quite a lot of stuff over 2 years in our house, and you really need to think about who's going to be responsible for that, because you obviously can't just leave things. So that's something to bear in mind, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Anything else from anybody?
I was also just going to say that kind of similar to that, but any opportunity that you have to get involved in kind of any of the community projects or volunteering is a really nice way to, again, feel like you're meeting quite a diverse range of people. And it's going to enrich your experience, but it's also, going to enrich the lives of people that are living in Hyde Park that aren't students, that want to feel like actually students are coming in and they're not this kind of completely temporary flow of people that just come in for their own experience, but actually there's so many students that really do want to give something back to the area that has kind of given them such a positive experience. So I think anything like that, is great to get involved with, and yeah, just really enriching, really. Yeah.
Any from you, Lottie?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd just say make the most of it and make the most of those opportunities as well, because it goes so fast. Before you know it, you might be moving into your third year house, and then all of a sudden you're done and you're going home. So really make the most of feeling like you are part of that community and you do live there. You're not just there for a temporary sort of stopping gap kind of thing, and get involved while you can.
Great. That's kind of, wrap that up really nicely. Thanks, guys. So like in the next part of this session, we've had some questions raised through the kind of Instagram campaign. I'd like to kind of put two kind of nominated people, but of course, if anyone else wants to chip in, do share, because this is about kind of getting to grips with kind of some complicated things. I think I'd like to start with kind of a waste question, because Hattie kind of mentioned kind of getting to grips with the bins early on was a bit of a challenge. So we've had a few questions about getting to grips with kind of waste management. So kind of things like where can you put what goes in your green bin, and where can I find my nearest glass bank? How on earth do I find my bin days? Lottie, have you got any insights into kind of how we manage our waste here in Leeds?
Yeah, yes, that was definitely something that I noticed, quite different from home. So, for example, in Leeds, even just the colours are different for me. So your green bin is your recycling bin, and you have a black bin for your waste. And you can't put glass in your recycling bin. And quite often, if you do, then they won't take it. So you need to take it to a glass bank. And there's normally one sort of every few roads. I know there's one by the park. There's one at the bottom of Manor Drive. But they're really easy to find. And also, you can download the City Council's app for your bins, which is really useful. So it will tell you what day your bins go out. And that'll be different for your black bin, your green bin, and it might not be every week. So that's really useful, just to have that reminder rather than kind of thinking it in your head, because you do need to take them out and take them back in. And if you miss it, then potentially you're waiting a little while and it becomes a problem. So I definitely recommend downloading the app, and then that tells you what you can put in it as well.
Great. I think that's available on kind of, all kind of platforms. So yeah, easily found, kind of Leeds Bins app, I think it's called.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of questions, I think, because it's potential kind of pitfalls with housing. So we've had a couple of questions about kind of if you get a problem with kind of landlord, obviously Hattie's get some great tips on kind of taking pictures of kind of condition of property that when you move in. But if you do experience problems with housing, what should we do? Who would like to have a go at that? Lottie? Sorry,
Yeah.
Lottie.
No, that's all right. So this is another thing that I didn't realise living in Hyde Park. When you have problems with your housing, the union can help you, the advice centre. They are so clued up on housing issues. And if your landlord's not fixing things for you, there are regulations that they have to do that in a certain time, especially with priority things like your boiler or like your washing machine. So I definitely recommend looking at the advice page, because there's lots of FAQs. So if you've got a specific problem, it's there and it's answered. But if you need tailored advice to your situation, you can get in touch with the LU Advice Service, and they'll sort of let you know your rights and what you have to do, and give you advice on that specific situation, because that's something I definitely didn't know that they were there for, and they're actually so useful and helpful about it. That's
I think the best kind of advice we could give on that really is there's help out there. Go and find help for any housing related issue or kind of any ongoing kind of issue, that the advice centre is there to kind of reach out and get support. So we've had a couple of questions. I think in response to kind of the kind of increasing kind of noise in the area, we're kind of conscious kind of noise is impacting kind of has been impacted students while they've been kind of studying last term, and kind of noises continue to kind of carry on in the local community with the new tenancy. So we've got questions about kind of can the university close a house party? So I'd like to kind of just address that. So yes, there are kind of enforcement powers available to Leeds City Council to kind of address noise as it's happening. So they can kind of visit a property, witness that noise, approach the household, have a chat with the household about the kind of the noise issue, and how it's kind of impacting on kind of local residents, and there might be follow-up action as a result of that. But kind of the point on that really is that if you do get a visit by kind of the police or the antisocial behaviour team or any or a resident, remain calm, remain polite, and listen to what they're saying and respond in politely. So if noise is a problem, you've really got to kind of address that and turn that noise down immediately. And of course, the university can investigate a noise complaint and choose to kind of take disciplinary action if that noise complaint is proven to kind of had an impact on local residents, which noisy kind of large gatherings at any time can disrupt people's kind of way of life, whether they're kind of working from home right now or kind of trying to relax on an evening. Kind of noise is kind of a problem for everybody regardless of time of day. So I think we had a question, I think we touched on this already, but about keeping safe. So kind of you've mentioned some tips already, Lottie, but Izzy, kind of have you got any kind of tips on kind of keeping safe?
I think again what Lottie was saying, just making sure that everyone in the house is accountable, like you all kind of talk about it at the beginning, that whoever's the last to come in, make sure that the door's locked, locking your windows as well. We had a lamp that we left on kind of all the time, as much as anything for kind of peace of mind, but we knew that there was a light on in our house at all times. On the West Yorkshire Police website, there's actually a section that's called Student Safety, which is really clear advice for like various different things, but it's all kind of tailored specifically to students in Leeds. I thought that was quite helpful. Just thinking about as well for personal safety, communicate with your friends, kind of tell them where you are, tell them what your plans are, and just looking out for each other and making sure that you're letting people know if you are somewhere on your own, and what you're when you plan on coming back is always a good shout, I think.
That's a great tips there. And a great website. I've seen that. That's a really informative website. So we've had a very, very specific question about moving again. Can my parents help me move in with COVID guidelines? Who would like to have a crack at that one? Lottie.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, so our advice would be to kind of keep your eye on the guidance. Obviously, if you can move in without your parents, then go ahead. But obviously, it's a big task. So our advice would be kind of try, if you can, to avoid public transport. But obviously, it's not feasible for everyone. So just make sure you're doing it safely. So if you've got other people in the house, maybe they can arrange to be out if your parents are going to have to help you to move in. And it's just about minimizing that contact between different households. But obviously it's quite a big time, so there are lots of things to be carried in. So again, it's about communication between you and your housemates and what everyone's comfortable with. So that's just definitely a conversation worth having before you just turn up at the door with your 5 family members and loads of boxes to move into your house.
Yeah, probably good to kind of notify your housemates that you're going to be
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously it's a very kind of emerging situation, and kind of guidelines changes day by day. So I think yeah, if you are kind of planning to move, kind of do check the government guidelines. There is a web page specifically on moving house, so kind of just double check that in case anything has changed, because of course, you know, if there is a kind of sudden surging kind of COVID cases in Leeds or where you are right now, then obviously the situation will have to kind of be reviewed and changed. Okay, we've got a kind of socializing activity kind of question. So what venues and bars are there in Hyde Park? We've touched on the Independent. Have you got any faves that you really kind of enjoy going to?
I think Hyde Park Book Club is a good one. For students especially. My friends a few times actually ran events there. So they have a basement which you can hire out, and I don't think it's very much at all. And obviously because they benefit from that, because it means you're bringing in a group of people who are going to use their bar, and then you benefit because you're getting an affordable venue. So I think when they had a few bands involved, it really wasn't very much at all. So that's worth knowing about if you want to kind of put on events, and obviously they've got the right licensing for loud music and stuff. So that's a good way of putting on events if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, very relevant to kind of the point about kind of noise. You know, there are venues available if you want to kind of organise a kind of event, whatever your music tastes are. Kind of these function rooms are available and on the doorstep if you want to do something. So yeah, great tip. Anyone else? Anyone got another fave though? Kind of venue, kind of location, cafe, restaurants in kind of the area that I really enjoyed?
Yeah, I absolutely love East Village. It's like right in the centre of Hyde Park, so it was always quite a nice meeting place for kind of special occasions or on a Friday or something. And also in terms of cafes, Coffee on the Crescent is great because they're just a really sustainable coffee shop and perfect on the way to uni. So I love it there, and they let you stay there to work if you're,
Oh, great!
Great working place.
Where is that, Hattie? Give them a plug. Give them a plug.
It's Hyde Park Corner.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I know what you mean now. How about you, Lottie? Where was your favourite kind of
On Hyde Park Corner as well, I'd say R&A's Cafe does really, really nice food. And then opposite there as well, there's Friends of Food, which is a really nice vegan outlet kind of place. I don't think you can sit in, but they do really, really nice takeaways. So it's nice for like a sunny day on the park. Just go grab a nice vegan burger and then go and lie on the grass. Yeah, they're really nice.
So kind of looking at the questions, we've kind of answered quite a lot. I have another one kind of that I could potentially answer about signs appearing in the area about a PSPO. What is it? So the Public Space Protection Order has recently been implemented for Hyde Park, is around giving additional enforcement powers to Leeds City Council for dealing with kind of criminality and antisocial behaviour. What does that mean in practice? Well, that means kind of it prohibits certain behaviours. That includes leaving your bin out between collections. So you must return your bin to your kind of property after it's been emptied, or you may be kind of given a fixed penalty kind of fine immediately for kind of leaving it out. gatherings of kind of more than kind of 2 people. I know it sounds quite kind of harsh, but kind of in kind of public spaces. So if there is large gatherings in the local park or in kind of back streets or streets that are potentially causing a problem, there can be additional kind of enforcement taken against kind of gatherings in the local area. Being in possession of alcohol. So you are not permitted to consume alcohol pretty much other than kind of if you're in a licensed premises or you're on your property. So yeah, if you've got alcohol, you know, don't consume it kind of in public places, or else you could get it confiscated or fine. And yeah, so what it means is kind of, yeah, back streets, don't think about having a kind of big party in your back street. Not a great idea from a noise point of view, but kind of it's prohibited now in the local area. Don't consume alcohol while you're out and about, and make sure your bins are put away between collections. So that's essentially what it means. For more information and guidance on that, we've dropped some information on the 4 student pages on our university's web pages. So have a look there just to kind of look at the detail about what it means and what it means to kind of, yeah, what your responsibilities are out and about in the local community. So another question, an all-rounder question. If I can find it. It was a great question. Getting involved locally. So what local projects can you suggest people get involved with? Hattie, how about you?
So yeah, there really is so much going on in Hyde Park, and I know it's kind of one of those things that I felt like I came to a little bit too late to get kind of as much as I could have done out of it. But yeah, I was a volunteer for Rainbow Junction, which is a community food waste pay-as-you-feel community food waste cafe. So they essentially get delivered kind of surplus food that would otherwise go to waste, and it's served up in the local community on a pay-as-you-feel basis. So, you know, for people that kind of go there to rely on food regularly, but also kind of on Friday evenings they'll do a more kind of fundraising event with really amazing food, and you know, there's so many amazing kind of people that are involved in that. So that was really great. And if you, I guess as well, if you're not looking to necessarily volunteer, it's a great place to go and support on an evening. So that's great. I know Hyde Park Source as well is a really, really great organisation to get involved in doing kind of community garden work. And I guess as a student as well, you can kind of feel very sucked into like a little bubble and actually doing something kind of that is really working to kind of improve the local community, and also a way to get kind of involved in outside green spaces. It's just so beneficial for kind of well-being and stuff. So those would be kind of my 2 suggestions.
Easy, Lottie?
I think going through the volunteering societies is a good option as well. If you kind of don't know where to start, on the LUU website, there's loads of different volunteering societies who kind of do different kinds of volunteering, but a lot of them are doing things in Hyde Park or the wider kind of Leeds community. I think park cleanups as well are a really good one to get involved in. I know I had a friend who did that a lot. When you see all the rubbish in Hyde Park, there's groups who volunteer to clean that up. And that's, I think, something that's often overlooked. People kind of forget where that rubbish goes. So that's a great one to get involved with as well. Great.
And I think there's a new I Love Woodhouse Moor group that's just been set up. So I think kind of bespoke kind of collections are kind of organised through that group. So if you kind of want to keep involved, you can kind of join that group on Facebook, I think. Lottie, kind of anything you'd like to add on kind of getting involved locally? Anything you've been involved?
Yeah, I was going to say we have a new project that we're kind of looking at, that our students come to us with an idea from their year abroad university that they saw in California, where societies like owned a street in Hyde Park. Well, in Hyde Park, their Hyde Park. So societies would own a street, and like monthly they'd do a cleanup, and they'd have a little plaque on that street as like they owned it and they were responsible for it, which I think is a really nice way of getting involved in the community, and that's hopefully something that we can start and get involved with. And as well, I think I wasn't involved with it, but something that I really love is all the mural project around Hyde Park. I think that's like a really nice visual representation of some really good community work that's gone on there. and it definitely makes it a really bright and fun place to be.
Yeah, definitely. So the Murals project was a project that Patty and I were involved with. So to kind of get up to date with kind of things like that are happening, we kind of encourage kind of students to kind of sign up to the sustainability kind of social media, Facebook, Instagram, the usual. But yeah, pick your preference. So we kind of post regularly through there and kind of what's happening and things, opportunities to get involved with that are kind of delivered through our team. But Lottie, is it kind of, will you be planning on kind of circulating information about your projects through kind of the LEU social media, or as a way kind of people can get in touch and get involved with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be like a trial for this term. We're still sort of looking into the logistics of it, but I think we're going to be running a trial with like a few societies to see how it goes for this term, and then other societies will get the option to sign up from first semester 2. So that'll go through mostly like student leaders communication from LUU.
Great. Yeah, and of course we're all very interested in hearing great ideas on kind of supporting students to get more involved locally. So I'd be interested to post on the social media if you kind of got comments or suggestions. One more question, I think, and then we'll kind of do a wrap up. How do I change my address on the electoral roll? Hopefully we're not going to have another general election. I'm not sure I can base it. But obviously someone that's really keen on getting involved with kind of local elections. So kind of any kind of tips from anyone coming from kind of how you do kind of get involved with the local, I suppose, local political scene?
Just literally Google register to vote, I feel, is what I did. And then it's very easy from there. And I feel like it's common that people have kind of multiple addresses. So I was registered at my home address, and it was really straightforward to kind of add my Leeds address on. So yeah, on the Gov website, register to vote, and it's really straightforward to register a second address.
From what I remember as well, around the time where you're kind of approaching a deadline where you need to be made sure that your new address is registered, there's, not to rely on it, but there is usually some quite good comms around kind of reminding you to do that. I know I left it way too last minute and was kind of panicking. But yeah, there's quite a lot of quite good reminders of kind of make sure that you do this, and you don't need the polling card to go and vote. You can still do it without the card. So little stuff like that. So yeah, I guess around the time, just make sure you've done everything with plenty of time so you're not panicking.
I think as a rule of thumb, I think it's usually 6 weeks. You've got to register 6 weeks before the election, and it's typically around the 13th of May, usually, when local elections. So that's kind of choosing who your local council is to represent your kind of local area and on key things like transport and housing and those kind of things. So great. Well, I think today's session's been really great, and I've really kind of really learned a lot actually, kind of about kind of the great things that I haven't been to see in the local area. So I'll be checking out kind of some of the things on Hyde Park Corner very soon. But kind of any last minute thoughts on kind of what you'd like to kind of put across as a kind of key takeaway message?
Get involved in as much as you can. Kind of respect your neighbours and who you live, and kind of, I think, just treat your neighbours as you would want your neighbours to treat you. I think that was my general rule of thumb. So yeah,
I think having a lasting impact as well is kind of a theme that we've all touched on. Like you're even if you're only living in Hyde Park for 1 year or 2 years, there are little things that you can do while you're there that will kind of have a lasting impact after you move on and a new set of students come in.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, making the most of it while you are there, similarly, like your impact, and just having a good time and making sure everyone else around you is as well.
Great. Thank you so much for your input, guys. I think that's kind of, we've wrapped up for today. Just a kind of final thought to say, do check us out on sustainability kind of social media, check us out on LEU social media, and yeah, do get involved and kind of find out what's happening. So bye for now.